Artist Cao Fei's 2013 film, Haze and Fog, portrays the purgatory of a new Chinese housing development. The film shows the buying and selling of apartments, the daily lives of the inhabitants, and their gradual transformation into zombies. Cao Fei provokes us to ask, what does Chinese real estate development have to do with the undead? Shenzhen is the largest of the special economic zones created in 1980. It was strategically located as a line between the Hong Kong border and a second border with the rest of China, a trap set to attract capital and expertise from Hong Kong and labor from the mainland. This differential machine has been very successful in producing flows of money, people, and goods, growing by more than 500,000 people per year to 15 to 20 million today. Shenzhen is known as a manufacturer of cheap commodities, but the pillar of its economy has been real estate development. It was the first Chinese municipality to experiment with land leasing in the early 80s, and the first to sell land use rights in 1987. This year, Shenzhen has led China in the rise of office rental prices, spurring on projects like Urbanus Architects' proposal for a tower that would dwarf the city's current tallest building, the Kinki 100. The city's speculative boom is driven by the development of Qianhai, a special zone within the zone designed by landscape architects Field Operations. Though not yet built, this vast landfill will soon function as the city's new center, and companies eager to locate there have driven up rental prices in the older centers while they await its construction. China's largest developer is Vanke, a Shenzhen-based company whose headquarters, designed by Stephen Hall, are as big as the Empire State Building, but laid on their side to form a horizontal skyscraper. The metaphor of a levitating toppled tower seems especially apt here, recalling Cao Fei's Undead and Koolhouse's floating stock exchange. But what is most striking about the building is that much of it remains unoccupied, empty real estate hovering above vacant public space. Nearby, Shenzhen's second largest developer, Overseas Chinese Town, has built 2 theme parks, a golf course, and a sequence of villa enclaves. These towns are designed for China's wealthiest citizens, but 5 years after their construction, the houses have never been occupied, and entire subdivisions remain empty. In 2013, Wang Shi, Vanke's CEO, shocked the world on 60 Minutes by admitting that China had a housing bubble. In 2014, it was estimated that there were 49 million sold but vacant homes in China. In addition, large numbers of units remain unsold. But is this extreme example of oversupply exceptional? This graph showing the number of tall buildings built in New York City over the past century illustrates the close correlation between overbuilding and significant recessionary moments in the US in the 30s, the early 70s, the late 80s, and in 2008. Capitalism is predicated on a novel form of property that is, on the one hand, exclusively owned and absolutely monopolizable, characteristics similar to those of the feudal aristocracy, and on the other hand, available to all and completely alienable, attributes that make capitalist property very different from earlier forms of land. In the early 20th century, American economist Thorstein Veblen argued that capitalist ownership was at its core absentee ownership. Veblen saw a separation between industry and business. The business sector made its money by using absentee ownership to sabotage industry, literally locking the factory gates to curb overproduction. In their book, Capital as Power, Jonathan Nitzan and Shimshon Bichler illustrate this by showing that historical capitalism requires a healthy level of unemployment in order to generate high profits. They argue that contemporary economic battles are fought between dominant capitalists using 4 weapons of differential accumulation: greenfield development, mergers and acquisitions, stagflation, and cost cutting. In their detailed analysis, they show that 2 of these strategies, mergers and stagflation, are key. This mirrored graph illustrates that inflation has been used as a tool of differential wealth creation at exactly those moments when amalgamation slows. In China today, the concentration of power in the hands of a small number of development firms has accelerated exponentially, while house prices have risen rapidly in relation to other consumer goods. So China's real estate bubble illustrates Nitzan and Bichler's 2 key dimensions of differential accumulation at the same time. But China's exceptional housing inflation is not unusual. It looks quite reasonable compared to the US in the early 2000s, or to the ongoing rise of house prices in Canada. The corollary of the vacancies produced by China's speculative real estate market is overcrowding. Only 3 million people have Shenzhen household registration status. The rest are migrants. And none but the richest of these can afford contemporary real estate. Instead, they're crowded into these handshake buildings, rising 7 to 15 stories across the city. But the peripheral districts are also home to what sociologist Pun Nai calls the dormitory labor regime. Shenzhen is a monotonous landscape of factories, dormitories, and overgrown villages punctuated by the speculative developments of the real estate industry. Unemployment is to time as vacancy is to space. In the late 19th century, Karl Marx argued that the general law of capitalist accumulation was unemployment. And the rise of a planet of slums today makes this argument clear once again. The vast tracts of empty urbanization around these crammed quarters is testimony to the parallel rise of a spatial surplus. The high price of real estate in Shenzhen is predicated on two facts. One, the housing market does not need to accommodate the migrant class, which is packed into rental properties that cannot be sold and are therefore subtracted from the calculation of average price. Two, both individual investors and property developers hoard vacant units in order to maintain their value, rather than unloading them, thereby maintaining the demand for more units. There are two problems with the #1 slogan of Shenzhen here. First, time and space are both fungible as money, and the latter turns out to be as important as the former. Second, China's open and reform policies, which promise the efficient allocation of resources, have instead turned out to be the most incredible mechanism for misallocating space. Thanks.